Colette Cunningham, a 53-year-old detective inspector from the Serious Crimes Unit in Liverpool, is exceptionally good at her job. Today she is planning to arrest Tommy Brennan, but he escapes through a window. The police immediately start chasing Tommy Brennan, who of course doesn't get far. Eventually he is arrested on suspicion of possession and distribution of substances, as well as obstruction of justice. Suddenly Colette receives a call from Detective Sergeant Luke Byrne of the Irish Police in Dublin. According to him, the body of Stacey Lockley has been found. Colette has no idea who that is. Luke Byrne explains that Colette is listed as Stacey's next of kin. Colette insists she doesn't know any Stacey Lockley. Suddenly Tommy tries to escape again, and Colette cuts off her conversation with the Dublin detective. Later, Colette interrogates Tommy, whose actions have landed 6 people in intensive care. To every question Tommy simply responds, "No comment." But Colette manages to get Tommy to open up by pressing the point that she's going on holiday tomorrow, and another detective who might not be as lenient will take over his case. Colette is looking forward to her holiday, but her mood is dampened by another call from Detective Byrne. Colette repeats that she hasn't been to Dublin in 30 years and doesn't know any young woman from there. However, when Luke Byrne begins describing the victim and mentions a birthmark on her shoulder, Colette is stunned. She's so shocked she can't even speak. When the colleagues start congratulating her on her upcoming birthday, which will fall during her holiday, she simply walks past them, lost in thought. At the first opportunity, Colette takes a ferry to Dublin and meets with Detective Luke Byrne, who takes her to identify the body. Barely breathing, Colette confirms Detective Byrne's suspicions. The autopsy will reveal what happened, but for now there's a preliminary conclusion that Stacey Lockley passed away voluntarily. Through tears, Colette says she wants to be alone with her daughter, and Luke Byrne leaves. Colette still can't believe what's happening. Later, Detective Byrne asks her several questions about Stacey. Colette states that she hasn't seen her daughter in 20 years and hasn't even spoken to her on the phone. Stacey left home at 17 and cut all contact. Because of this, Colette knows nothing about her daughter's life. All these years she searched for her, not knowing that Stacey had been in Dublin all along. By the way, her daughter's real name was Kate Cunningham. It's clear she didn't want to be found. Luke Byrne asks Colette if she will stay in Dublin for now. Colette isn't sure yet, but she intends to visit Stacey's home. She also has many questions, such as where the body was found. Detective Byrne explains that it was in Phoenix Park. He also mentions that until recently Stacey worked as a nurse at St. Peter's Hospital, but she was suspended a few months ago. Colette says she wants to speak with Detective Sergeant Jane Connolly, who is in charge of the department. Jane Connolly explains that Stacey's employer accused her of stealing opioids shortly before her death. The hospital is still conducting its investigation. It seems the detectives have no doubt that no one harmed Stacey intentionally. Before Colette leaves, Jane mentions that they haven't been able to contact Cara or Liam. These names mean nothing to Colette. Later, Colette visits her daughter's home and looks through the rooms. The kitchen is messy. When Colette enters Stacey's bedroom, she can't hold back her emotions. At that moment, Liam and Cara return home, unaware of their mother's death. Colette informs them that she is their grandmother. It's clear the teenagers aren't happy to see Colette because their mother spoke poorly of her. Colette in turn tries to gently break the news about their mother's passing. Cara refuses to believe it and starts desperately calling for her mom. Colette tries to hug Cara, but the girl doesn't let her, screaming that it's all a lie. Liam hugs his crying sister, trying not to show his own emotions. But in reality, he is just as devastated as Cara. Colette asks the boy where their father is. Liam replies that he hasn't seen him in years. Liam doesn't mind if Colette stays the night, unlike Cara, who is adamantly against their grandmother occupying their mother's room. When asked what happened to their mother, Colette answers honestly. But Cara doesn't believe her mother would do such a thing. Cara also claims that according to her mother, Colette kicked her out of the house at the age of 17. Stacey loved her father but couldn't live under the same roof as her domineering mother. Liam asks his sister to stop. Colette doesn't even know what to say. Later, she finds overdue utility bills and mortgage statements in the mailbox. Colette promises Liam that she will take care of those and also organize the funeral. That night, the woman finds it impossible to sleep, surrounded by photos of Stacey and her family. She receives a call from her assistant, who already knows that Colette had to cut her vacation short due to family matters. Colette's colleagues take the opportunity to wish her a happy birthday. Later, she contacts Chief Superintendent Brown with a request. The next day, Jane Connolly informs Colette that her request for a 6-month transfer has been approved. The decision was made unusually quickly. For the first few months, Colette will be on probation and tasked with routine work. She will also need to attend refresher courses. Colette accepts this, asking Jane to keep her familial connection to Stacey confidential. Colette is now taking care of her grandchildren. Liam admits that he has never been to a funeral before. Colette reassures him, saying it's an opportunity to honor his mother's memory. Kara is struggling greatly with the loss of her mother, and unlike Liam, isn't very friendly toward the grandmother she met for the first time yesterday. The next day, Ryan Shelby shows Colette her new workplace. While going through the database, she finds information about Stacy Lockley. Seeing the photo of her adult daughter, Colette feels conflicting emotions. Her research is interrupted by Siobhan Wilson, who wants to introduce herself to Detective Cunningham. Siobhan also introduces Colette to the rest of the team and suggests they all go to the pub sometime. Colette politely promises to consider it, though she knows she must focus on her responsibilities for now. Today, Colette and Siobhan are working a case together. They arrest a young man, Dylan Horgan, on suspicion of distributing substances. Dylan's foster mother, Marlene, readily agrees to talk to the detectives, who explain that 2 people died from the substances in question. It seems Dylan is in serious trouble. Under the bed of Marlene's foster daughter, Aisling, the detectives find a drone controller that Dylan may have used to distribute substances. It's likely he hid the controller under his sister's bed, though this is only a theory for now. The girl is questioned. Her father is currently serving time, and Colette suspects he may have asked his daughter to deliver a package to him in prison using the drone. Colette knows Dylan taught his sister how to operate it. The girl admits she only wanted to help and says she's very sorry. Later, Detective Byrne informs Colette that the toxicology report confirms their initial theory. The charges of stealing medication from the hospital have been dropped against Stacy due to insufficient evidence. Luke also offers his condolences. Colette then takes her grandchildren to the store to buy clothes for the funeral. She asks them whom they'd like to invite to the funeral. Kara suggests Debbie Gleason, the mother's friend. Liam mentions that their mother had a boyfriend, Owen, but they seem to have broken up. Colette learns that Stacy listed her as the official guardian of her children in case something happened to her. Since the children were born out of wedlock, Irish law does not automatically grant custody to their father. Colette is surprised that her daughter made such arrangements. Interestingly, Stacy updated the official documents just a week before her death. Colette meets Patrick Fannin, who compliments her on her good work on her first case at the new station. Patrick was the first detective on the scene where Stacy's body was found. He tells Colette that nothing suspicious was discovered. Colette plans to visit the site herself. Today is the day of the funeral. Liam is crying, missing his mother terribly. Not many people attend the funeral. The priest delivers a eulogy, followed by Colette, who thanks everyone for bringing love into Stacy's life. Sadly, Colette never got the chance to know the adult Stacy or share her life in Dublin with Liam and Kara. During Colette's speech, one of the attendees leaves the church. The others place flowers on Stacy's coffin. Thus ends Stacy's modest funeral. Late that evening, Colette finds a sports bag among her daughter's belongings. It contains opioid medications and cash. Could Stacy really have been involved in illegal activities? A new morning begins for Colette. She has no idea what to do with the evidence she found. Should she report it to the police? It is after all her duty. Later, Colette reviews Stacy's outstanding utility bills once more. The children are getting ready for school. Liam is fairly friendly toward the grandmother, which cannot be said about Kara, who shows her displeasure in every possible way. Briefly, Colette notices a message on Kara's phone from her boyfriend Ross. Colette offers to walk the kids to school, but Kara simply slams the door on her way out. Liam, however, doesn't mind. Colette shares stories about his mother, who always stood up for herself. Colette worries about the children returning to school so soon after their recent psychological trauma, but Liam reassures her that they can handle it. Colette notices Kara arguing with her boyfriend. Jane is outraged that Colette didn't press charges against Aisling Carey, despite receiving direct orders to do so. Colette explains that Aisling is just a child, and it would be cruel to punish her to the full extent of the law. Jane makes it clear that all her subordinates are expected to follow orders without question. Colette has developed a friendly rapport with Siobhan, who confides in her about a recent argument with her girlfriend. Siobhan is worried because her partner's family doesn't accept her. Colette supports her colleague before they head to St. Peter's Hospital to question a young man, Anthony Blake, who sustained a knife wound. Incidentally, Stacy used to work at this hospital. The doctor informs them that Anthony Blake is currently in a medically induced coma, so questioning him is impossible. However, the detectives could speak to his mother, Fiona Blake. Colette asks Siobhan to contact social services to check if this family is on their radar. Meanwhile, Colette speaks with Stacy's former employer. It turns out that Stacy's inventory records didn't match the hospital's supply of prescription medications. 4 to 5 vials were missing, which was enough for the hospital to launch an investigation. In the end, no evidence was found to prove Stacy stole the medications. Unfortunately, she didn't know this before her death. Colette examines Stacy's belongings from her locker at work. Upon seeing a photo of Stacy with Debbie, a colleague, Colette immediately speaks with her. Debbie says she didn't notice anything unusual in Stacy's behavior recently but can't help blaming herself for not seeing any signs. Of course, Stacy had her struggles. She was suspended without pay, which left her short on money. Debbie doesn't believe Stacy would have done anything illegal to make ends meet. Debbie knows little about Stacy's ex-boyfriend, Owen Maloney. Kara, still grieving her mother's loss, listens to music during lessons instead of paying attention to the teacher. She often locks herself in a bathroom stall and cries. Liam is worried about his sister. Right now, they are each other's only source of support and comfort. Colette attempts to question Fiona Blake, who was admitted to the hospital after overdosing on some medication. The first thing Fiona asks is if her son is alive. The detectives want to know what happened that night. Fiona explains that she was watching TV when she heard screaming. When she went to Anthony's room, he was lying on the floor motionless. Fiona isn't sure if anyone else was in the room. There might have been a man. Colette tells Fiona that Anthony was placed in a medically induced coma, meaning his injuries are very serious. It's crucial to find out who's responsible. Getting nowhere with Fiona, the detectives promise to return later. A team of forensic experts is working at the crime scene. After receiving a call from Colette, Patrick reports that no signs of forced entry were found upstairs. Liam and his friend Kevin Cheng plan to play a computer game at Liam's house today. Colette and Siobhan also arrive at the crime scene. Patrick mentions that the Blake's neighbor said she saw Fiona's boyfriend visiting the house the day before. Patrick already knows that Colette is Stacy Lockley's mother. He expresses his condolences. While the boys play their game, Colette returns home and finds Owen Maloney there, collecting some of his belongings. Liam assures his grandmother that everything is fine. They have a conversation. Owen seems a bit confused because Stacy never mentioned her mother. Owen also doesn't believe Stacy could have stolen the hospital's medications, even though she was struggling financially after her suspension. According to Owen, the father of Stacy's children didn't pay child support but insisted on maintaining contact with them, which Stacy strongly opposed. Colette contacts social services, where she is once again informed that she has full guardianship rights, not Stacy's children's father, as the children were born out of wedlock. Stacy's lawyer is certain that the case concerning the stolen medication was a guaranteed win and that he could have secured good compensation for Stacy, but unfortunately it's too late. Suddenly, Colette gets a call from Kara, who asks her to pick her up. The girl is clearly drunk and upset but refuses to talk about it. Colette guesses it has something to do with that message. Kara only says that Ross acted like a jerk, but it's none of anyone's business. Colette takes care of Kara, who feels unwell from the alcohol. The girl even thanks her grandmother. Colette decides to search the internet for information about stolen prescription drugs. Apparently, this is a common issue in Dublin. Meanwhile, Colette and Kara's relationship grows warmer. Outside, Ross is already waiting for Kara, worried that she might reveal their secret. Kara tells him she isn't that foolish. Ross regrets not being there for his girlfriend when she needed him most, but he had a shift at the pub. Colette doesn't have access to all the case materials, so she asks how to proceed if her case overlaps with another department's case. Patrick explains that in such situations, the other department will likely take over the investigation. Fiona finally feels better, and she is interrogated. Fiona insists that her boyfriend Jay wasn't at her house that night, but CCTV footage suggests otherwise. There is also other evidence indicating that Fiona is lying. Colette pressures Fiona, stating that her son Anthony is in critical condition. Fiona eventually confesses that Jay got angry that night because Anthony had hidden the substances. The young man hoped it would help his mother break her addiction. Jay lost his temper and attacked Anthony. Fiona claims she couldn't do anything, but Colette doesn't believe her, as the evidence suggests Anthony was being held down by someone. Someone else was clearly assisting Jay. The interrogation is interrupted by Patrick, who informs his colleagues of Jay McPherson's arrest. During questioning, Jay initially denies everything, but when he learns that Fiona is trying to shift all the blame onto him, he recounts what actually happened. Fiona indeed tried to cover for Anthony. The questioning is cut short when Colette receives a call from the hospital. Anthony has passed away. Upon hearing this, Fiona breaks down in tears. During a break, Jane and Colette have a brief chat. Jane remarks that people like Fiona shouldn't have children. Colette reflects that she too was a bad mother. Sometimes we don't realize the mistakes we make until it's too late. Returning home, Colette finds the children gone. Stacy's room is turned upside down, as if someone was searching for something. Fortunately, whoever it was didn't find the sports bag containing medication and cash that Colette had hidden. Inside the bag, there's also a key. Colette wishes things were different. She should have been the closest person to Stacy, but instead, a 20-year gap divided them. Until recently, Colette didn't even know she had grandchildren. Colette decides to change the lock on the front door. And she can't stop wondering, what is this key? It's a type that cannot be duplicated. Superintendent O'Kelly and Detective Luke Byrne come to Colette's house to ask where she was on Tuesday evening. Colette is shocked by such a question from her colleagues but answers that she was home, and Liam can confirm this. She adds that Owen, Stacy's boyfriend, also came by. It turns out Owen named Colette as his alibi. When asked what that means, O'Kelly says he can't disclose details but advises Colette to stay away from Owen. Owen is a member of the Donnelly gang and has long been on the police radar. He is very dangerous. O'Kelly doesn't want Colette to get involved in this. Naturally, as soon as the superintendent and detective leave, Colette searches for information online. It seems Owen really is connected to the criminal world. Colette visits a security agency to get information about the key. She shows her police badge, claiming the key is connected to an ongoing investigation. The staff member explains that without the boss's approval, he can't provide any information, as the key is registered to someone else's name. Taking advantage of the moment, Colette glances at the computer screen and sees the name Marie Gormley. In the end, the employee asks Colette to present a warrant, but she already knows everything she needs. Siobhan is currently investigating a jewelry store break-in, and Colette decides to assist her colleague. The surveillance cameras capture the criminal. Colette promises to look into it, suspecting that the store owner, Dominic Kirby, cares only about the insurance payout. On the video, the criminal isn't wearing gloves, so lifting fingerprints should be straightforward. Jane requests a private conversation with Colette, informing her about a call from Helen Rooney, a security agency manager, who reported strange behavior from a police officer. Jane wants to ensure this doesn't happen again and insists Colette coordinates her actions with the leadership in the future. Now Colette has to deal with the case of the staged jewelry store robbery, while her thoughts are occupied with something entirely different. Colette completely forgets she has changed the locks and hasn't given the children new keys yet. This enrages Kara, who is struggling to come to terms with how much her life has changed. But the real issue isn't the locks. Colette reassures Kara that she won't abandon her and Liam. They are a family, and that means they have to support each other. Later, Colette arrives at Marie Gormley's address, but no one answers the door. Without much hesitation, Colette climbs in through an open window. Inside, the apartment is a mess and looks abandoned. Colette finds a preparation, the same one that is in Stacy's bag. Suddenly, Colette's car alarm goes off, and she rushes outside, scaring off a group of teenagers. Neighbors say Marie hasn't been around for months, but her mother lives in the next block. That's where Colette heads next. Mrs. Gormley tells Colette that her daughter passed away 8 months ago. Marie used to be a beauty, but the substances took that from her. Colette wants more details. Mrs. Gormley explains that Marie's boyfriend dragged her into an immoral lifestyle. She lost her job at a pharmacy and stopped visiting her mother. Mrs. Gormley tried to talk sense into her daughter, but it was futile. When Colette shows her a photo of Owen, Mrs. Gormley confirms it's him. Colette studies Owen's file, which shows he's had several prior run-ins with the law, and starts telling him. Owen already has a new girlfriend. Jane expresses frustration that minor cases are being solved slower than the leadership wants, noting that with Colette's experience, she should be much faster. Patrick finds online ads selling jewelry supposedly stolen from Kirby's store, meaning the case might finally progress. The detectives contact the seller and arrange a meeting. The seller turns out to be a young man, about Liam's age. Realizing it's a trap, the young man runs, but the detectives chase him down and arrest him. His name is Finn Kirby, and he's the store owner's nephew. Finn's mother demands he confess. Finn says he just wanted to help his uncle. Colette orders Dominic Kirby's arrest for insurance fraud. Naturally, Kirby denies everything, claiming his insurers are just cutting corners and don't want to pay. However, evidence shows that Kirby staged the break-in and involved Finn to present surveillance footage to the insurers. He also persuaded his nephew to sell the supposedly stolen jewelry. Kirby eventually admits he orchestrated the scheme for the insurance payout to keep his business afloat, and he is charged with fraud. After work that evening, Colette, Siobhan, and Patrick decide to go to a bar. Before that, Colette calls Kara to make sure everything is okay. Kara says they're fine. Ross ordered pizza, and Kevin is there too. While having drinks with her colleagues, Colette shares that her relationship with her grandchildren is improving. Siobhan mentions that her relationship with her girlfriend also seems to be getting better, so she leaves early. This leaves Colette and Patrick alone. With his experience, Patrick could easily take Jane's position, but he's not interested in being a captain. The next day, Colette meets with O'Kelly and tells him about her surveillance on Owen. Colette is certain that Owen's new girlfriend is destined for the same fate as Stacy and Marie. He charms vulnerable young women, and then they mysteriously die. This doesn't seem like a coincidence. O'Kelly reminds her that the deaths of those women were ruled accidents, not crimes. But that doesn't change the fact that Owen is dangerous, and Colette should stay away from him. She remains worried that the children's father might gain custody, even though the lawyer assures her that the upcoming trial is just a formality. Jane wants to know what Colette discussed with Superintendent O'Kelly. Colette assures her it was nothing important. When asked about the key, she gives the same answer. Aside from Jane, Colette manages to establish good relationships with the rest of her colleagues. And of course, Colette is determined to uncover the truth about the key, even if she has to work behind Jane's back. Having gathered all the necessary information, Colette arrives at a warehouse-like building and unlocks the door with the key. Inside, she comes face to face with Owen, who claims he was just walking nearby and wandered in by chance. Owen also denies knowing Marie. However, Colette knows the truth. Owen mockingly remarks that those women made their own choices. The world is full of broken women, ruined by parents like Colette. When Owen asks how Kara is doing, it enrages Colette, and she begins to threaten him. Yet it's unlikely Owen is intimidated. Now ensuring the safety of her grandchildren is Colette's top priority. She already understands what Owen is capable of, even though she still can't prove his involvement in the women's deaths. Jane assigns Colette to investigate a hotel room theft. Colette reluctantly takes on the task. Siobhan can't understand what Colette did to anger their boss so much. It's strange for Jane to assign such a trivial case to an experienced detective. The victims are a couple in town for a football match. They're not even sure whether they spent the €400 on beer, but they still lean toward it being theft. The detectives request all the necessary information from the hotel manager, including a staff list and surveillance footage. The detectives also ask the manager about the cleaner, Hannah Gita. He describes her as quiet and hardworking. Colette has no desire to waste her time on such minor cases. She needs to focus on Owen. But she has no choice. Siobhan reviews the hotel's surveillance footage and notes that Hannah was indeed cleaning the room on the day of the alleged theft. Colette suggests interviewing the cleaner and closing the case. Colette gets a call from her lawyer, who informs her that a social worker will visit her home today to ensure the children are living in proper conditions. That's not all. The children's father, Neil Kilduff, has resurfaced. He returned to Dublin from England 2 months ago. Colette reviews Neil's file, which states he served 2 years in prison for a bar fight. Siobhan has already arranged for a translator to question Hannah, but the specialist won't arrive until later. Jane pulls Colette aside and demands an explanation for why she threatened Owen. Colette has no intention of justifying herself. Jane issues an official warning and orders her to leave Owen alone. Since there's no work until the translator arrives, Colette heads to a call center to talk to Neil. She introduces herself immediately as Stacy's mother. It seems Neil is serious about being involved in his children's lives. He wants to leave his past behind but doesn't want the kids to know about his time in prison. Colette tries to explain to Neil that it would be better for the children if she remained their guardian, but Neil makes it clear he won't allow that. He intends to fight her in court. On her way home, Colette calls Liam, suggesting they invite Ross and Kevin over tonight. It would be nice for everyone to spend time together. Due to traffic, Colette is a little late. Nancy Dwyer from Child Protective Services is already waiting for her. The house is messy. Nancy asks Colette to explain her relationship with the grandchildren. It's obvious the social worker is concerned that Colette barely knows the kids. Colette explains it wasn't her choice, but she's willing to do whatever it takes to provide them with a better future. However, her words do little to alleviate Nancy's skepticism. Colette is out of practice living with teenagers, and her career is stressful. When Colette asks what steps need to be taken next, Nancy replies that she will request a letter of recommendation from Colette's workplace and then speak with the children. Hannah, who immigrated from Romania, is questioned with the help of a translator, Elise Koyakaru. Hannah says she's been working at the hotel for 2 years without any days off, yet her salary is still low. Hannah denies stealing any money. Colette then shows her a photo from the surveillance footage. Hannah is the only one who entered the room. Hannah bursts into tears, refusing to answer further questions while looking terrified. Colette suspects the translator said something inappropriate to the suspect and demands a replacement. Jane explains that finding a new translator will take time. Siobhan remembers that Ryan's mother from IT is Romanian, so he understands the language. Ryan confirms that Elise Koyakaru indeed mistranslated deliberately. Moreover, it's evident that Hannah is a victim of organized kidnapping crime. Jane orders the arrest of Elise Koyakaru for obstructing justice and arranges for a new translator. The detectives question Hannah again, urging her to reveal what really happened. The girl fears the people involved will find her if she speaks out, but Colette assures Hannah that the police will protect her. Even Jane is shocked by the revelation. It turns out the translator also works for an organized crime group. In the evening, Colette, Liam, Kevin, Ross and Kara gather for dinner. Colette is glad to meet her grandchildren's friends and mentions that, like Ross, she worked in a pub during her youth. Everyone chats and laughs, sharing funny stories from their lives. Everything goes smoothly until Colette serves dessert. Kara bursts into tears because her mother used to make the same dish. Unable to bear it, the girl runs away from the table. Colette regrets ruining the evening, but Ross assures her that Kara will be fine. All evening the kids watch family archive videos, reminiscing about their mother. Colette shares that after her husband passed away, she thought she would never feel happiness again. This lasted until she realized Andrew wouldn't have wanted her to live a hollow life. Kara wants to know why her mother and grandmother hadn't spoken for 20 years. Through tears, Colette explains that after her husband's death, she wasn't herself and failed to support her daughter as she should have, which led Kate to fall into bad company. One day Colette gave Kate an ultimatum: either follow my rules or leave. Kate left, making sure no one could find her. Colette will never forgive herself for this, but she knows the past cannot be changed. Kara knows that her mother didn't hate Colette. Stacy had told her so. Hearing this, Colette feels a sense of relief. The next day, as the teens are getting ready for school, Liam notices a small bag of substances in his sister's backpack. He realizes she is hiding them for Ross again. Kara begs him not to tell Colette, promising this will be the last time. Later, when Siobhan asks to borrow Colette's car for a few hours, she finds the same gym bag filled with opioids and cash in the trunk. Siobhan doesn't know what to do, so she directly asks Colette about it. She admits she found the bag in Stacy's room and suspects Owen is involved. Colette is determined not to back down. Even though it puts her career at risk, Siobhan isn't about to give up on Colette or report her to Jane. At school, Liam confronts Ross, warning him to stay away from Kara. The boys get into a fight. Of course, the school principal calls Colette in for a discussion. She asks her grandson to explain what happened since it had seemed like he and Ross were getting along. Liam lies, saying Ross called their mother crazy, which caused the fight. But Colette quickly realizes he isn't being completely honest. Liam only says he promised his mother he would take care of Kara. Colette knows she can't replace their mother, but she will do everything possible to give Liam and Kara love. Since Colette has some errands at the police station, she has to bring Liam along. Patrick even gives the boy a small task to keep him occupied. Hannah changes her earlier testimony, claiming she stole the money herself and that no one forced her. The detectives realize that someone has threatened Hannah. She fears those people more than prison. Without her testimony against them, the police are powerless. Siobhan can't accept that an innocent person will end up in jail. Colette suggests putting pressure on Elise Koyak-Aru, the interpreter, and the hotel manager. Jane agrees this is a good idea. Later, Colette thanks Patrick for keeping Liam busy during those hours. On the way home, Liam confesses the real reason for the fight with Ross. He is deeply worried about his sister. Meanwhile, Kara is spending time with Ross in his car. Colette easily tracks them down and firmly orders Kara to stop seeing Ross. Kara insults her grandmother but ultimately cannot stay with her boyfriend. Colette also threatens Ross, warning him that he will regret it if he approaches Kara again. Near the house, Colette and her grandchildren see Neil waiting for them. The kids are thrilled to see their father and run into his arms. Colette has no choice but to let Neil in. He brings gifts for the kids and remarks on how much they've grown. Kara wishes the father could stay forever. For her, the main goal is to escape Colette's control. Liam, however, is resentful of the father for missing their mother's funeral and for being absent from their lives for years. Neil lies, claiming he was working but is now ready to fully dedicate himself to his family. Listening to this blatant lie, Colette wonders what her next move should be. Later, during a private conversation, she asks Neil not to show up unannounced again. However, Neil has no intention of respecting her request. He is determined to gain full custody of the children, and he doesn't care that Stacy wanted custody to go to her mother. Colette tries to have an honest conversation with Kara, who despite everything refuses to break up with Ross. The girl believes he cares about her, and Colette's rational arguments, that if he truly cared, he wouldn't involve her in substance dealing, fall on deaf ears. Realizing that words are useless, Colette declares that things will go her way, no matter what. Liam feels torn. On one hand, he's angry at his father, whom he last saw when he was 10 years old. On the other hand, Liam is glad to see him. Everything feels complicated and confusing. Colette replays the voicemail Stacy left for her son, asking him to take care of Kara. Stacy mentioned she had to settle some matters, and it didn't sound like she intended to harm herself. Debbie, Stacy's friend, doesn't answer Colette's calls. Determined, Colette studies Stacy's call log and asks Kara if she recognizes a particular number her mother had called. But Kara refuses to speak to Colette unless she allows her to see Ross. It turns out one of the unknown numbers belongs to a women's crisis center in Dublin. Colette immediately goes there, shows her police badge and questions a staff member about Stacy Lockley. According to the staff member, Stacy was afraid for her children's future. She was also clearly afraid of Owen, though the reason wasn't clear. That's all the staff member knows. Colette calls another number and hears a man's voice. She doesn't say anything. Later, she tells Siobhan everything she's discovered. Colette is convinced Stacy was trying to escape from Owen. Their conversation is interrupted by Jane, who orders them to investigate an attempted armed robbery. The detectives arrive at the crime scene without delay. There were 2 robbers, but one managed to escape. The question is, why were they trying to rob a van carrying pharmaceutical supplies? In the crowd of onlookers, Colette notices Owen. One of the robbers gets injured while trying to flee and is sent to the hospital in an ambulance. While he receives medical attention, Colette examines his belongings and notices a key. Once the suspect's condition is stable, Colette demands to know when Owen gave him the key. Usually Owen has one of his girlfriends register the lock so he doesn't get his hands dirty. James remains silent, but the detective already suspects that Owen ordered him to deliver the substances to one of the lockers. A lawyer sent by Owen arrives and declares that James Orman will not answer any police questions. Colette shares the details with Luke Byrne and later with Siobhan. It's obvious Owen is directly involved in all these activities, and Siobhan promises to dig deeper. Colette urges her to be careful. After work, Patrick invites Colette to a pub. She agrees. Patrick shares that he has a son, but unfortunately they don't see each other often. Colette in turn reveals that the biological father of her grandchildren intends to gain custody. Kara is very much like her mother in temperament. Colette doesn't want to repeat the mistakes of the past and will do everything to protect Kara from bad influences. On her way home, Colette notices a familiar car driving away from Stacy's house. She grows concerned. The children aren't home, and they aren't answering her calls. Colette finds a note saying they've gone out with their dad. To distract herself, Colette turns on the television. Time passes, but the children don't return. Eventually, Neil brings them back. Liam tells his grandmother to leave him alone. She's bewildered, wondering what's going on. Debbie is also there. It turns out she and Neil are now dating. Colette repeats to Neil that he mustn't show up unannounced again, let alone keep the children out so late. When Colette learns that Neil doesn't object to Kara's relationship with Ross, her anger grows. Neil claims he has told the children the whole truth about himself, including his time in prison. From now on, he wants to be honest with them. Colette is deeply unhappy with what's happening. Debbie assures her that Neil loves his children and can be a good father to them. In the morning, Kara thanks Colette for breakfast. Liam, however, looks gloomy as he asks his grandmother if she knew their father had been in prison. Colette explains that she was waiting for the right moment to tell them. Liam finds it strange that their father is now dating Debbie, their late mother's friend. He is also deeply troubled by the fact that their father is a criminal. But Kara doesn't seem to care much about any of this. Liam realizes it's because their father allows her to keep seeing Ross. Siobhan finds out who registered the key, Orla Quinn, an employee at the pharmaceutical supply company that was targeted in the robbery attempt the previous day. Colette remembers Orla. She's Owen's new girlfriend. The detectives immediately visit Orla. She has a bruise on her face. Through tears, Orla tells the detectives that her boyfriend is responsible. Colette promises her protection if she tells the whole truth about Owen. Orla insists she didn't give Owen the delivery schedules for the pharmaceuticals. She speculates that he might have stolen them. She also mentions that Owen shouted about someone named Donnelly and needing to hide. Before her death, Stacy tried to warn Orla about Owen, but Orla dismissed her, thinking Stacy was just crazy. Now Orla realizes that Owen manipulates women. Colette tells Siobhan she intends to continue monitoring Owen. They don't yet have enough evidence to bring him to justice. Kara tells her brother that if it comes down to choosing between their father and Colette, she will choose their father. She wants Liam to do the same so they won't be separated. Colette notices a message from Ross on Kara's phone, suggesting they meet tomorrow. Colette goes to the pub where Ross Corby works, but he hasn't shown up today due to some urgent family matters. She shows the pub owner her police badge and demands Ross's address. At the given address, Colette sees Ross meeting with Owen and takes a photo of them. Owen, visibly angry, is yelling at Ross. Colette calls the unknown number from Stacy's contact list again. To her shock, Ross answers. Could he be connected to Stacy's death? Colette immediately informs Siobhan. It remains unclear what's inside the bag Owen gave to Ross. Colette asks her colleague to go to the pub where Ross works and requests CCTV footage from the night Stacy died. Later, Colette spots Ross meeting Kara. They argue and the girl walks away. Perhaps she refused to store Ross's goods for him. Without hesitation, Colette arrests Ross. Colette can't reach Siobhan and her worry grows. Meanwhile, she and Patrick prepare to interrogate Ross. They use the prospect of a lighter sentence as leverage if Ross testifies against Owen. Ross admits he met Owen through Kara's mother and started working for him. He claims he wanted to leave that life behind, but Colette doesn't believe him. Owen wouldn't entrust someone random with goods worth 13,000 euros. The interrogation is interrupted when Ross's lawyer demands a private conversation with her client. Colette tells Patrick that Stacy spoke with Ross on the phone on the day of her death. They might have even met. Siobhan's findings confirm Colette's worst suspicions. CCTV footage shows Stacy meeting Ross on that fateful night. The interrogation resumes, and Ross is now charged with involvement in Stacy Lockley's death. Jane observes the interrogation. Ross's lawyer complains about someone with close familial ties to the victim conducting the questioning. However, the police code has no restrictions regarding this, so the interrogation continues. Ross claims Stacy met with him because she opposed his relationship with Kara. Colette demands he explain what substance he added to Stacy's drink while she was distracted. Caught off guard, Ross admits it was fentanyl. The footage reveals Ross leading helpless Stacy out of the bar, putting her into a car, and then calling someone. The detectives demand to know who he called. It becomes clear that Owen set Ross up to take the fall for the serious crime. Panicking, Ross refuses to provide any clear answers. The lawyer demands to pause the interrogation for a private consultation with her client. Jane orders the case to be handed over to the organized crime unit. Colette is very disappointed. Jane explains that it's the procedure, but that doesn't lessen Colette's frustration. After all, the organized crime unit had botched the case in the first place by failing to classify Stacy's death as a crime. Jane tells Colette to go home and get some proper rest. Colette tries calling Kara but gets no response. Liam doesn't know where she might be either. He's currently at the library with Kevin. When Colette returns home, she finds the front door open and the entire house turned upside down. Kara is still not answering her phone. She's left it at home. Suddenly, Colette gets a call from Owen. He tells her that Kara is with him. Owen says he's willing to let Kara go in exchange for the bag, the same bag Stacy had threatened to take to the police. He warns Colette that he'll be waiting for her in 40 minutes and that if she involves her colleagues, Kara will get hurt. Finding a flash drive in the bag, Colette hurries to check its contents but discovers it's password protected. Liam and Kevin arrive. Colette tells the boys to go to Kevin's house and stay there until she tells them it's safe to leave. Afterward, Colette heads to the agreed location. Leaving the flash drive in her car, she takes the bag and enters an abandoned building, calling for Kara. She hears the girl sobbing. Owen is holding her at gunpoint. He then points the gun at Colette, demanding she hand over the bag, her phone and her keys. When he doesn't find a flash drive in the bag, Owen looks both scared and furious. He points the gun at Colette again. Getting no answer from her, he throws her against a wall and grabs Kara. If he doesn't get what he wants, Kara won't leave alive. Through tears, Colette promises to give him the flash drive, but only after he lets Kara go. With Donnelly hunting him, Owen has little time and reluctantly agrees to her terms. The moment Owen releases Kara, she runs away. Keeping Colette at gunpoint, Owen demands she lead him to the flash drive. Colette complies, but when Owen gets distracted, she pulls her gun out of her car and shoots. Kara is terrified but unharmed, and that's all that matters. It's over. Owen is taken away in critical condition. Jane and O'Kelly commend Colette for her excellent work. Luke expresses how sorry he is about what happened to Kate. Colette is about to take her granddaughter home. Kara can't believe Ross is directly involved in her mother's death. Colette simply takes her hand. At home, Neil and Debbie are already waiting. They've tidied up a bit and prepared some food. Everyone is still shaken. Kara tells Liam everything about Ross and Owen. They hug. Kara deeply regrets trusting Ross. Neil still thinks it would be better for the kids to leave this house and live with him, but Colette disagrees. Unable to reach a consensus, they decide to let the kids choose for themselves. Despite being emotionally drained, Neil insists on an answer right away. With tears in her eyes, Kara says they will stay with Colette because it's what their mother would have wanted. Neil is hurt but understands there's nothing he can do. As he and Debbie leave, Colette assures him she has no objections to them staying in touch with the kids. Colette reflects on her daughter. Sadly, life had taken them on separate paths. Later, Colette visits Stacy's grave. She is ready to let go of the past. Kara and Liam grow to love Colette as if she were their own mother. One evening, they surprise her by converting their mother's room into a space for Colette. At that moment, Colette can't hold back her emotions. Now they truly are a family. For the first time in 20 years, Colette falls asleep with peace in her heart. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel not to miss more exciting new products. Also, the authors will be pleased if you leave your opinion in the comments.